Are there any additions to the agenda? Go ahead, John.
Yes, Mr. Chair. If it's not already added, I'd like to add an agenda item, absence of myself.
Thank you. You have a fairly lengthy number of minutes there we have to approve, starting in April 13th, 22nd, May 12th, May 13th, May 21st, May 22nd, and June 10th. Has everybody had a chance to review those? And if there was no error and omissions, would someone move the acceptance of, I think you'll have to make one motion, but just list the dates for those minutes, please.
I'll move the acceptance of the minutes for April 13th working session, April 22nd regular meeting, April 22nd in-camera meeting, May 12th regular meeting, May 13th regular meeting, May 13th in-camera meeting, May 21st working session, May 27th regular meeting, May 27th in-camera meeting, June 10th committee of the whole, June 10th in-camera meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder for that? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. Warden's remarks briefly. Canada Day celebration is coming up on Wednesday. I'll be down on the waterfront and a few other places. I also quickly would mention that there is some funding out there to fix up lighthouses, and Friends of the Yarmouth Light have put our lighthouse on there, so you can vote once a day, so anybody that would have a chance. Can someone tell me, I know it's on Facebook, where they could go to find that? Does anybody know? For any in the public could? I know it's on Facebook, I guess. That's all I can tell you right now is on Facebook and vote. And the lighthouse with the most votes will get, I think it's $250,000 for renovation. So, okay, moving on to public hearing. Brad, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. There are two amendments at public hearing this evening. The first is a request from Lady Venus Fisheries Limited for the rezoning of a portion of a property in Overton from rural development to rural industrial for the construction and operation of a lobster holding facility. The request came in on April 22nd, 2015 to rezone the property PID 901664448. It's on the south side of the Churn Road, bordering the ocean in Overton. The owner, as I mentioned, is Lady Venus Fisheries. The owner of the company is Mr. Patrick Sproul, who's here this evening. The property is approximately 9 hectares or 21 acres in area. What's being requested is the rezoning of a 2-hectare or a 5-acre portion in the western section of the property. The property is the section that's being developed or being requested is, as I mentioned, 5 acres in 5 acres in area. It has approximately 200 feet of ocean frontage and extends back some 600 feet and then goes northward to the Churn Road. A public access has been granted from the Department of Transportation for the access road off the Churn Road, south off the Churn Road, to access the property. There's an area, a graveled area for turning and parking for truck access to the facility that measures approximately 70 meters by 30 meters to the east of the proposed building. The building, by the way, is proposed to be in the western portion of the property in proximity of the ocean, as it's a requirement of a lobster holding facility to have water from the ocean. A pipe is put out into the ocean and salt water is pumped into the facility and then returned to the ocean. So the buildings have to be fairly close to the ocean. The proposal met all the requirements of our municipal planning strategy policies for rural industrial properties. It meets all of the requirements of the land use bylaw, all the provisions of the land use bylaw for setbacks of the building area, etc. And as I mentioned, the Provincial Department of Transportation has approved the commercial access from the Churn Road. The application and proposal was reviewed by the Planning Advisory Committee and recommended to Council. And as I mentioned, it meets all of the requirements of the Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw, and it was the recommendation of myself as the planner that this proposal be approved by Council and the section of property be rezoned from rural development to rural industrial.
Did you want to deal with that before we go to the next one?
I would think that would probably be
Okay.
appropriate too.
So have you got any written?
No, there were no written submissions. There were no inquiries made to the district planning office. There was one inquiry to the development office, the municipal development office, and it was simply an inquiry as to how to access the information on the website. It was just a telephone call, and Francine advised the person on how to navigate the website to get to the material, and that was the only inquiry. And there were no inquiries at the main office, the municipal office either. So.
And there were, you mean at our office here, there was none?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Council, Trevor.
Yes, I'll move that we grant the request of Patrick Sproul to rezone the lands from rural development to rural industrial is presented this evening.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Question being called, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Move on to 3.2,
This is a-
5.1.2.
Yes, this is a small housekeeping amendment to the land use bylaw. When the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw review took place a few years ago, one of the exercises was a land use survey. The land use survey determines which properties are being used for which purposes, the commercial properties, the industrial properties, the residential properties, etc. Those uses are recorded on maps called existing land use maps in the municipal planning strategy. When you draft your land use bylaw, you create zoning maps, which are the actual provisions that are required to be administered by the development officer. It was discovered, Roger, the development officer, received an inquiry from a lawyer in Halifax, I believe, doing some sort of a transaction on a specific property in Hebron. When Roger checked the bylaw, he noticed that it was recorded in the existing land use map as a commercial property, but it was not recorded in the land use bylaw as a commercial property. So it was simply an error of admission on the part of myself. When I drafted the bylaw, there are hundreds of properties, and this one, unfortunately, was simply overlooked. So this is just simply a housekeeping amendment to revise Schedule B, which is the land use bylaw map, to record this property as an actual commercial property. It is a commercial property. It's used for commercial purposes. It was recognized as being commercial in the municipal planning strategy, but unfortunately it was overlooked in the transition to the land use bylaw. So it's simply bringing the land use bylaw in concurrence with the municipal planning strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Fulton. Any further discussion from council? So, what's the wishes of council on that? Go ahead.
I'll move that we revise Schedule B as Mr. Fulton's outlined this evening.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Here. Pardon? Did it? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Fulton, for coming in.
Thank you.
Moving 6, Business Horizon. 6.1 is the, I guess that's going to be a line item. There's nothing new to add to that outside. I will add that the warden from Argyle, Councillor LeBlanc, and myself went to an announcement in Grand Prairie. I think that would have been a week and a half ago on Friday, and all the, I think, I brought you up to speed on this, but I think all the municipal agreements were in agreement and have been signed. I think they are working on, but I can't give you any more details on a virtual film to actually do to deal with the history of this whole area, starting with Cape Firshu and the Port Royal moving on up. And they'll be looking for funding from that. So anything you can add to that, Ken? Or? Yeah.
If I could, at our last meeting, I think it was the warden and Councillor LeBlanc was appointed as the alternate on that joint committee with the other municipal units. And I was just thinking it might be a good idea if perhaps we started looking at how we might put together a group to start working on the local aspect and how we fit into that. So I guess there were a few names thrown out that people that may be able to help with some of the historical information and so on. So, and I can't remember exactly what those names were, but I know Steve had one or two. If you could throw those names into us, maybe we could kind of poll a few people, see if they'd be interested in sitting on a committee that we could start working on some potential projects or how we could dovetail into the bigger project.
Right. Yeah, I had mentioned Wilfred Allen as someone who's he's got a treasure trove of information about our heritage here. I wonder if that committee should sit within the Heritage Committee. It's been relatively inactive, but it would be a good focal point for that committee.
That's a good point. Do you want to flip this sort of it's part of the legacy, but it's a separate item? Maybe we could flip that over to the Heritage. We have a Heritage Committee, do we not?
Sure. Maybe I could suggest that you two, as the members appointed, could sit in with them and work on some of that. If that would
Okay.
be appropriate.
Yeah.
Let's, I'll talk to Liz after and get I'm not sure who sets, without going through the, Modi, to find out who sets on the Heritage Committee, but we'll sit down and set
Gerard
together.
and I do.
Okay, so the only addition to that would be myself, so let's set up a meeting then, okay? Pardon? Oh yeah, but you're going to meet now, we'll go. Okay. Did you want to speak, Steve? Your mic was slow, I just turned you on again. Okay, Trevor, your mic's on too also. Okay. 6.2 is, for your information, is a letter from Nova Scotia Department of Health and Welfare on the funding project, which was the trail to Greenville Road onto the railroad track. So, Councillor.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that item. Certainly, I was pleased as councillor for District 5 that we got the funding to put in the trail from Industrial Park down to the railway track. But again, that we also applied for funding, and this is I think the second time round, for the section of sidewalk from Route 1 to the railway track on the Greenville Road. In any event, that's a really important piece of infrastructure because now we've got the trail. It would be good for the register folks to be able to come down, and frequent the, I guess, eating establishments in Hebron, Dayton. And also, it's really important, it kind of completes the loop for walkers and that type of thing in the area. So I really would like to see that project move forward over the next little bit. It's a short section. But having said that, I'd like to, I'm sure the MLA's aware that, the funding wasn't adequate for that project. There have been cuts in that area. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to, make a motion that we write our MLA, indicating that, the project wasn't approved and asking him to look into the situation, see if there are any other funding avenues available for us to, or for the provincial government to partner with us to get that little section of sidewalk completed. So I'll make that a motion.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Question being called, all in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you. I just want to back up 1 second to 6.1. Maybe council, by the next meeting, which will be in July, if you have any names outside of Steve has one or two, would you just pass them on to Steve or Gerard and myself? That, if 3 or 4 of the people that are knowledgeable on that want to work together with us on that. So if you can think of anything in the next week or two, just pass those names along to us, okay? Moving down to new business 7.1, streetlights, Councillor Cunningham.
Yes, we of course, as we're all aware, we passed the streetlight policy, the new one, and really looking forward to having our new streetlights installed and moving forward with that project because there are a number of streetlights that are out, and residents, of course, want their streetlights and deserve the streetlights. So, and I understand staff has been working diligently to put together a request for proposals to get those streetlights installed in the municipality as soon as possible. So I'm looking forward to that. And I understand there's a presentation tonight on that issue. Is that correct? Or an update?
Thank you,
right,
Greg.
thanks.
I'm going to
Yeah.
turn you have the floor now, so thank
I
you.
wouldn't label this a presentation as much as I would just label it as an update. I was asked to come tonight to be able to provide you with some updates on the activities on that file in the recent months. So this will be a type of a chronological order of events, more or less, that have transpired pretty much since the end of 2014. Just to bring you up to date on this file that's been in the office for a little while now. So on December 4th, 2014, senior staff met with council to discuss results of the summer 2014 GPS streetlight mapping project and generally what might be involved in reworking the out-of-date municipal streetlighting policy. The GPS mapping data would be an important component of the LED conversion exercise. On December 4th of 2014, we communicated with NSPI operations managers to determine the number of streetlights installed or converted by NSPI to date, and at that time the number was approximately 370. NSPI also provided pricing information depending on the option chosen by the municipality. So option 1 for us would be to purchase the LED fixtures that have already been mounted by NSPI. Option 2 would be to pay a stranded asset fee for the new fixtures that have been mounted, take them down and return them, and then acquire our own new set of fixtures to replace those. January 21st, 15, we communicated with the Municipal Finance Corporation to advise that we may participate in the 2015 fall debenture issue. During the winter of 2014-15, staff worked on redrafting the municipal street lighting policy based on examples provided by other municipal units and discussions with council. May 13th, 2015, the revised municipal street lighting policy was adopted and made effective. And this as well would be an important component of the LED conversion process. In late winter, early spring 2015, senior staff drew on 2 comprehensive documents to develop a draft RFP for the supply, install, and maintain of LED streetlights. The templates were drawn for the municipality of East Hants and the municipality of Digby. A draft RFP to be used by MODI to seek a service provider was created out of these documents and circulated to senior staff on June 2nd, 2015 for review and comment. Senior staff will be meeting in the coming days, weeks to discuss and consider the comments, the final direction, and address the technical issues. On June 1st, 2015, we contacted NSPI representatives and requested the following: an updated listing of the LED fixtures installed in our jurisdiction, an updated stranded asset number for the HPS units, and we requested draft wording on the 2 agreements that will form a part of our relationship with NSPI. A support structure agreement which covers the usage of the poles, and an asset purchase agreement which outlines the particulars of the transaction depending on the options that we choose. Also on June 1, 2015, via email, we requested that NSPI cease and desist immediately with the install of LED fixtures in our jurisdiction pending our decision on how we will proceed with the NSPI options and the LED conversion process generally. Early June 2015, we contacted our mapping support at DPC to have them prepare for our consideration a sample district map to include streetlight positioning data that was accumulated during our summer 2014 GPS project, and this maps will again ultimately be part of the RFP package. To date, we have not contacted Bell Alliant. There may be a need to be formal agreement with them on the use of their poles. And on June 23rd, 2015, we sent a second request to NSPI for the information and the drafts that were cited above. So the next steps that need to be done, and this is not necessarily in order of execution, but should be close to it. There needs to be some further financial analysis on the impact of the two NSBI options. Senior staff needs to meet to discuss and finalize the RFP, and this includes confirming a MOD project lead. It includes decisions on NSBI options, includes consideration of the technical aspects of the fixtures, and it includes final preparations of the appendices, attachments, and the mapping that will become part of the RFP document. Final negotiations and sign-off of NSBI agreements pending decision on which NSBI option MODI chooses. We'll need to contact a Bell Alliant representative to determine if an agreement with them on the use of the poles is required and or necessary. An RFP will be distributed according to municipal procurement policy protocol. There will be receipt of RFPs, and there will be an evaluation and award and signing of contracts. The final business case needs to be updated based on new information, including NSBI chosen, the NSBI option that we choose, the stranded asset fee for the old HPS units, results of the RFP process for supply, install, and maintain of LED units, current day utility costs for HPS units, and utility costs for the LED units based on the UARB approved tariff schedule. A TBR will need to be lodged by council to allow debenture borrowing when the time comes. A final determination on the financing mix, participation in the fall MFC debenture issue, and probably ultimately and finally a reconciliation and settlement with NSBI on the true energy costs arising from the conversion process. So that's a real quick and dirty of what we've done in the last few months and where we are today and what needs to be done going forward.
Thank you, Greg. Any further discussion? Councillor?
Greg, just what would the anticipated timeline be? And I know there's lots of other people in play here because we're certainly talking about at least two other partners that we need to get some information from, or maybe probably two or three. So what would your anticipated sort of install date be?
It's difficult for me to say that. I would rather have some targets set by council and CAO, but that has not been provided yet. So we're just working away on the details as we get a chance. The next big hurdle for us will be to basically get together and get our heads around the RFP, get that finalized. Like I said, it's in draft, but we need all heads together to address some specific issues, technical issues and format issues and things like that. So it's not my place, I don't think, to lay out timelines on this project.
Mr. Warden, if that's the case, I'll direct a question through you to the CAO. What would he expect that first step of putting some timelines in? When would we work on that? When would we get those established?
As Greg said, that'd be a little difficult to say at this point. There are a number of partners that we have to get some information from and get over a few of those hurdles before we have a better idea of exactly when this can hit the ground. There's a fair amount of work to be done yet. So over the next short while, I guess we'll be meeting, senior management will be meeting, talking about the way forward and how to best map it out. And once we get a little ways down the road, we may have a better idea of when this can actually hit the ground.
Greg, whatever option we choose, if we keep the LEDs, how many is there that they've installed, you know? And what kind? Is it the kind that they have the globe on it?
Provided us was a list of approximately 370 fixtures.
LEDs.
LED fixtures. That's all they're allowed to install. They can't install the old Globe HPSs. So they're all the new LED fixture technology. What we don't know is if there's going to be the same fixtures that we'll end up with when we go to tender. So that's an issue. That's a technical thing we need to work out as our senior management team. We have an option of keeping what's there, or we have an option of sending them back and taking a tender and replacing them all with one type of fixture. And there's financial considerations, but there's also technical considerations, and those are some of the things we have to work out with the rest of the management team before we can put that tender out to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Would council like to give a little direction? I'd like to see this move forward this year if we could. It's June now. I was kind of hoping, my own thoughts would be maybe by late August or September, we're going to have a move forward plan. Is that unreasonable, or what's the wishes of council? Do you want to put some kind of a deadline on this? I mean,
I guess my thoughts are that well, I'll make a motion that you know, we give this the highest of priorities, this project, because again, residents are calling occasionally, you know, wondering about their street light, you know, why it's out and that type of thing, and so this has dragged on, and I guess it's a function of it's a big project, and it's not a function of anybody not doing what they should be doing. It's a function of the complexity of the project. So, having said that, I would move that we move ahead with this as quickly as possible.
yeah, I understand it. It is complex. The issue is that we're not fixing any streetlights. We have residents that have lights that have been out for 2 years, and we should be. We're gonna either, if we can't do it this year, we're gonna have to start replacing at least the lights that I don't think the public's concerned about lights that are working, but they are concerned about lights that aren't working, and we're paying for them whether they're working or not. So I guess if we're not going to move forward, I'd like to see is if we're not going to move forward with the whole project this year, at least we're going to have to bite the bullet and start replacing some of the burnt out lights. Councillor.
Yes, well, I've been getting a lot of phone calls from residents in my area too, and I'd like to see the project move as quickly as possible. I know staff has been doing everything they can and trying their best, but I think, you know, just so you can have an answer for some of these residents, I'd really like to see it move as quickly as possible.
Okay. Did you made a motion and it's been seconded, right, by Gerard? Any further discussion on the motion? Question being called, all in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, 1 nay. 7.2, you have the May development report in front of you. Someone want to move the acceptance of that if you have no issue with it?
I'll make a motion to approve the May development report.
Do we have a seconder? All in favor? Contrary, nay. Thank you. Motion carried. 7.3, letter from Yarmouth Dog Society, a request for consideration of dog recreation facility. So, did you want to make a decision on that tonight, or where it's new, did you want to forward it and let staff come back with some recommendations? Just Councillor.
Yes, I think that's a wise thing. I'd like staff to take an additional look at it. My question would be, I guess one of the very last paragraphs, we're asking if you could provide us with a map of vacant lots in the municipality of Yarmouth that could potentially house a dog recreation facility. So just for clarity's sake, I'm wondering through you to the CEO if his interpretation of the letter is that, you know, we'd simply be providing that information. They'd be buying the lot, or are they looking for us to actually, I'm not certain of the arrangement that we'd be coming to create such a park, if we'd be involved at all, or we're just facilitating in terms of identifying vacant lots that somebody could purchase for such a function. You know, I'm unclear on that, so.
Yeah, and I'm also curious, I would actually like to have a presentation put out by these people, because right here there was a name I'd seen here, Tanya Crosby, Public Relations and Members of the Society. Apparently it's quite a large society, and I have a few questions. Number one, would not an area in the town better serve an area for a dog park? Because we do have a lot of rails and trails, and I do see a lot of people out walking their dogs on the railroad tracks, because actually just last weekend I was out there, I must have counted 6 people walking their dogs. And I'm wondering, and they also mentioned here about people coming off the ferry. Maybe they might be better suited to possibly have one in the town. However, with that said, I would like to possibly, if it's possible, to have a small presentation, whether it be informal or formal. I'd like to actually speak to these people in person, just to see, as Councillor Cunningham had mentioned there, some of the wishes and what exactly do they expect us. Do they want us to purchase land? Do they want us to donate some vacant land we may have? I don't know. I'd like to have a little bit more information. It'd be kind of nice to have a presentation by this group. However, I am in favor of at least setting up something where people can take their animals and let them run free.
Yeah, thanks, Warden. I would tend to agree. I think this is something that would fit well in committee of the whole, and we can, have maybe a discussion about it. It comes up periodically, and I think some of the confusion, it's really an off-leash situation that it sounds like the owners are looking for. So it's not about finding places to safely walk your dog on leash. It's about an off-leash kind of experience for the dogs where there's some socialization and, and I think it is probably a need in the community. It seems to me it's the kind of thing that maybe could stand alone as a private, small business, but definitely be willing to have a discussion at the committee of the whole.
You understand that, we're doing regular council and we've canceled committee of the whole for July. How time sensitive do we feel this is? I mean, we could do a committee of the whole and a regular council on the July meeting if you wish.
I mean, my suggestion is, I know it's a regular council meeting, but I can't see, unless the agenda is too busy, I can't see why we couldn't have them in for a presentation during that July, council meeting.
Good.
Even though it's not a committee of the whole. Or August. I mean, I think the thing is maybe to direct staff to, or ask staff to contact them and see when they're available.
So we don't need a motion. I guess we just need a general consensus to probably bring them in and speak to it, because there's a lot of, just to clarify some of the issues around it. I know there's issues if they want a fence compound, then it's almost limited to dogs, period. It cannot be like a soccer field or something, because then you have, so, and in the meantime, staff can do some searching and see maybe, and if we can kind of work out the two, what we have and what they need, if there's a solution to this for them. So I guess my direction would be, Liz, if you could get back to them and ask them if they'd like to come in and answer some questions for council, either in July 8th, which is quite quick, or either in August. Okay, thank you. .4 is, you see there a letter that the town has drafted up to send. I think Argyle and the idea is that Argyle and we do the same, because the ComFit program, we still have an application that's still, although we are looking for another location, was still a valid application. This is for them to open up the whole ComFit program again, because right now it's closed if you haven't had your application in. So how's council feel about that? Do you want to send a letter of support along with the town in Argyle?
I would speak briefly to that, just to suggest that the ComFit program is an important program. Here in Nova Scotia, it's really important that we get a lot better at using renewable energy, and we have extraordinary renewable energy assets in this part of the province that's not really being utilized. So we had the last successful application for ComFit before they put the program sort of on hiatus, and I think absolutely we would want to be supportive of having ComFit programs opened up again as soon as possible. So I would make a motion that we do either add our names to that letter or send a similar letter to the province. Is one more appropriate than the other? in terms of those two.
Can do our own? Okay, so your motion would be for us to draft our own letter and send it?
Yeah.
We have a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion from council? Question being called, all in favor say aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried, thank you. 7.5, Councillor Cunningham, a petition, Durkey Road Bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm going to do a little bit of preamble here first. For those of you who are unaware, and I'm sure you all are because you heard me speak to this when Donnie Houston was in here in regards to the Durkey Road Bridge being closed. I'm going to give a little bit of background information. The Durkey Road Bridge last summer was reduced to one lane due to broken main beams. It was reduced to one lane. As of last fall, when the school year started, the bridge was closed. The people in at least my district and up the Pleasant Valley 340 area are very upset over this. This bridge has basically been closed since the fall. And as we all heard by Mr. Houston, who was in here, that as of now, there's no plans to repair that bridge. And I also want to make one more thing very, very clear. I am not blaming the local Transportation Infrastructure Renewal Department for not getting this repaired. This all boils down to a budget issue in the provincial government. You all may remember me talking to Donnie Houston back in the fall about repairs to the Durkey Road Bridge. This is when it was one lane at the time. He said at that time that they were sending in a capital priorities list to the province before they made up their budget. When Donnie Houston was in here again, here at the last council meeting, I had asked him again. He said, yes, the estimate on the beams alone to repair the bridge were approximately $80,000. However, there was no plans at this time to repair the bridge. The residents are very angry. Over the past 2 weeks, there's been 5 or 6 spearheading up a petition, and they walk door to door. And also it's been in my local store and also up in the South Ohio store. As of today, and we have it on our agenda, there's 394 signatures in the local area that want this bridge repaired as soon as possible. This petition was given to our MLA, Zach Churchill, I believe yesterday, and he was uncommitted to whether anything was going to be done about this. This bridge is very important to the local community. It's not only a shortcut, but on the other side of the bridge, there's also 15 homes within a very half a kilometer radius on the opposite side. If there was an accident, if there was a problem with a fire, heaven forbid, the fire department, and this is an example, and I did these calculations today before I come to the council meeting. If the fire department stopped at the Durkey Road Bridge and had to go around, they would have to travel 2.4 kilometers down the 340 highway to the Hamilton Road. They'd have to turn right. They'd have to travel 2.1 kilometers up a dirt road. At this time, this dirt road is in very bad state because after all the rain, it's full of potholes. Can you imagine driving a fire truck up that? 2.1 kilometers. Then you're going to meet the Durkey Road again. To get back in behind the bridge, you're also going to have to travel another 1.2 kilometers. So that is very close to a 6-kilometer round trip, which is time is very precious, especially if someone got in an accident, a fire, a medical emergency. This is unacceptable. I, over the past little bit, have been quite concerned on some of the things that we have lost in the area. We've lost our health board. We've lost our land use registry office. We lost the fire towers being equipped. There's been a slow erosion in the services in this end of the province. And I think our MLA has to answer for that. And on top of that, we also have infrastructure that is not going to be repaired, or there's no plans at this time to be repaired. I'm getting very upset. I think that this area is being picked on, and I really think that council should stand up behind the residents. And I'm going to make a motion that we send a letter of support to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, Jeff McClellan, and our MLA, Zach Churchill, to support this petition to repair the Durkee Road Bridge as soon as possible. I'm quite upset. This is a shortcut that I use every day to go to work. And also, I did leave out one other thing. If the fire department decided that they could not pass on the dirt roads, if they had to go down the Holly Road, off to the Saunders Road, and then onto the Kiln Road, and all the way back, that distance of close to 6 kilometers would almost double for the fire department if there was a fire in behind there. Just think about that. If the bridge was out going up Vancouver Street up to the hospital, it'd be roughly the same thing of having to go down the old highway to the next road, and I'm not sure the name of the road, up to the Tinport Road and going back to the hospital. Can you imagine? People wouldn't be happy about that, and people out in Carleton are not happy about having to do this long detour. So I made that a motion that we send a letter to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, Jeff McClellan, and Zach Churchill, our MLA, to support the petition to repair the Durkee Road Bridge as soon as possible. So I make that a motion.
Thank you, councillors, and it's been seconded. Councillor Long. Any further discussion from council? Question being called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, nay. Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you very much, Council.
You 7.6 Western Regional Enterprise Network. You have your intermunicipal agreement and your liaison and oversight committee. Councillor, Deputy Warden, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Warden. Just to give folks a brief update, excuse me, these are a couple of small amendments to the intermunicipal agreement and our own terms of reference for the Liaison and Oversight Committee pertaining to the collapse of ERDT, the Economic, Rural and Development and Tourism Department. So there are a couple of references to that in our documents, and so that's one of the reasons for the amendment. The other major amendment to the intermunicipal agreement has to do with the kind of oversight of the audit committee. The audit committee had been under the LNO, the Liaison and Oversight Committee, and it's being transferred over to the Board of Directors, which is kind of the norm in situations like this. There was a little bit of discussion and analysis happening at the provincial level to see what governance model made the most sense. So those are the major changes. I also wanted to mention, I haven't mentioned to council yet that one of the irregularities when we entered into the intermunicipal agreement with all of our partners in the REN had Claire making an in-kind contribution rather than a monetary contribution. And at the time, it was an important sort of compromise to make sure we had a strong team in place, and that situation is no longer the case. So Claire is now in as a full monetary partner, and I just thought council should be aware of that. So if the CAO has anything else to add, please.
Just Claire being in as a paying partner is effective April 1st, 2016. So it's a year from now, or pretty much. But.
Any further questions of your representative, Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as you all know, that I was particularly unhappy with Claire only giving in-kind work to the REN, and I'm very glad to hear that they're going in as a funding partner on this. So I think that's a very important step of getting this whole region developed in the REN to be pulling together. So I think that's very good news.
Just talking to our CAO, I think maybe the representative, would you make a motion and council can either accept those changes or not? I think it'd probably be better if we had a motion to support those changes to the things.
So I'll move that we support the changes outlined by the Liaison and Oversight Committee of the REN to amend the intermunicipal agreements and terms of reference for the L&O Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, you have a motion and been seconded. Any further discussion? Question being called. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Contrary, nay. Thank you, gentlemen. Motion carried. 7.7. Anybody want to speak to that? Is concerning the Public Works building. There is an update. I think it's public on our site. Ken, right? Yes, so for the public out there, there's still some final plans on just exactly what the need is and the size, etc. But basically, there is some information there, and we'll be adding to it as we move along. So, Councillor.
Yeah, and just wondering what the timeline would be for the, public information session around that building.
The intent right now is the Public Works Director, along with the engineers, are actually still putting together the requirements. They'll be drafting some recommendations, bringing those forward, I would expect, within the next month or two to bring those concepts forward and to outline the reasoning behind them. It'll unfold over the next couple of months.
Okay. Thank you. You have your reports there. Does any of the reps, anything they wanted to add to those reports? Councillor Churchill?
No, actually, I guess I was first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Quicker on the draw than Rick was, I guess, today. There was no PAC meeting last month due to not a lot of things to do. However, Brad is still working on our, God, that thing has slipped my mind all of a sudden, is working on our instrument of subdivisions and our subdivision bylaw. So he's currently working on those, and hopefully very shortly that they will be coming forward to the committee for discussion and possible forwarding it to council. However, that's going to probably take a lot of discussion with a lot of different stakeholders, and it's probably going to be another 3-4 months down the road. YASTA, we only had our annual general meeting yesterday, and if any of you would like to see the meeting minutes from that should be up live on YASTA's website at www.yasta.ca. And there's also another committee that I sit on that it's not a regular committee report, and the committee is the Carleton Watershed and Area Water Quality Monitoring Steering Committee. This is a new committee, and the main purpose of this committee, and it was struck up by a whole different bunch of people, including Roy Fudge, myself, Brad Fulton has decided to take this on. The main purpose of this committee is to make sure that there's continued water quality testing in the Carleton River system and other lakes to see if there's improved or declining water quality in the area. I guess the main bunch of people that showed up, and it's quite a list. Obviously, there was myself, Brad Fulton was attending. We also have members from the Council of Clare, Danny Hill. He was unable to make that one. Water quality specialist Daryl Taylor and other officials from the Department of Environment were attending. John Sullivan and Roy Fudge from TREPA. Roy Fudge is the president or the general manager of TREPA, and this is very exciting. Jim Mullins from the Nova Scotia Mink Breeders Association, and also a biologist from the Mercy Tobiatic Research Institute. So this is quite a diverse group that's formed over the past few months, and it was decided that we're going to be meeting semi-annually. All the decisions in this committee are going to be informal. They're going to be all done by consensus rather than meeting minutes and stuff. And what the main purpose of this committee is to make sure that all the government department stakeholders, area residents, there's also a couple area residents sitting on this, making sure that we're exhausting all funding opportunities, whether it be from the Royal Bank of Canada, NSLC, Adopt a Stream, municipal grants, which the municipality helped out TREPA this year with $2,1,500, which is much appreciated. The Department of Environment this year, there's $10,000 that's been put forward to continue on with water quality testing. And also what this committee is doing is there's a bunch of eager people going to be working in all the departments. Department of Agriculture is another one, to see if there's any projects or funding avenues that they can do through their own departments or even federal departments. So this committee is very busy. It's very loosely coordinated. However, there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes. And what they want to make sure that they're doing, as I said before, is to make sure that there's continued water quality testing over the next X amount of years. As you all may or may not know, water quality testing started in the Carleton River system in 2008. And I do believe that the municipality has supplied a secure server to hold that data. The data is not been distinguished or gone through yet. However, that is a good holding place for all the data, and all the continued data that we're going to get from years continuing is going to be put into. So I think it's a very exciting group, and at least somebody's looking out for the welfare, and it's just not whether it be me or a few local residents or the group of TREPA. It's a whole bunch of different government departments and also industry stakeholders like Mr. Mullen. And also another thing that was brought up, and we've all heard about it, is the possible reopening of the East Kempville tin mine area. It was also brought up that maybe we should be in contact with the group that is doing the core drilling right now, and any group that may form a company to do some money out there that may be also available to sit on this committee. So it's a lot's been going on. This is only the second meeting, and we're only going to be meeting biannually, so our next meeting will be this fall to see where we stand and see where we need to go. So that's my report on that. So I don't know if you want it as a regular committee report, since it's only meeting biannually, but I can certainly give you guys all updates on what's happened at our next meeting when it comes up this fall. I believe it's, I have it written down here somewhere. I think it was late October is when they planned on meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor
very much.
Churchill.
Yes, I just like to let the public know that we are having our annual general meeting of the Friends of the Lighthouse tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at the library. And also on behalf of the library, I also want to send a thank you out to Gary Archibald on behalf of the municipality for all the work that he done on the library board for the last 29 years, both locally and provincially.
Thank you, Councillor. That's the end of the reports. We have no in-camera recommendations, so a motion to adjourn is in order. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Thank you, gentlemen.